The citizens of Earth looked up at the night sky on June 15, 2089, and saw something that changed human history forever. Strange lights appeared above major cities across the globe. These were not stars or satellites. They were ships from another world. News channels broadcast the same images everywhere. Massive vessels hovering silently over New York, Beijing, London, Cairo, and dozens of other cities. Each ship was smooth and oval-shaped, nearly 3 miles, long with a metallic surface that seemed to shift colors in the sunlight. John Carter stood on the roof of NASA's main building, watching the closest ship through a telescope. At 42 years old, John had spent his entire career designing spacecraft for NASA, but nothing in his experience had prepared him for this moment. "What do you think they want?" asked his colleague, Linda Morales. Linda had served 15 years in the Navy before joining NASA as a communications specialist. John shook his head. "I don't know. But whoever built those ships is hundreds of years ahead of us technologically." 3 days passed before the aliens made contact. They called themselves the Nexians, representatives of a vast galactic empire that spanned thousands of star systems. Their leader, Grand Admiral Zakar, addressed the United Nations through a holographic projection. Zakar appeared almost human, except for his bluish skin, silver eyes, and the ridge of small spines running along his hairless head. He spoke perfect English. "People of Earth," he said, his voice deep and smooth. "We come in peace. The Nexian Empire wishes to welcome humanity into our galactic family. We offer friendship, knowledge, and protection." Many people celebrated. First contact had been peaceful. The aliens seemed friendly, but John Carter didn't trust them. When the Nexians invited Earth's governments to send representatives to their mothership, John volunteered immediately. The inside of the alien vessel amazed John. The corridors seemed alive, with walls that glowed softly and adjusted to the perfect temperature. In a large meeting chamber, Grand Admiral Zakar greeted the human delegation. "We have watched your civilization for many years," Zakar explained. "Earth has great potential. We wish to help you develop it." The Nexians offered a deal. Earth would become a protected territory within the Empire. In exchange for resources like water, rare metals, and certain biological materials, the Nexians would share some of their technology and protect Earth from other alien threats. Most world leaders eagerly accepted these terms. It seemed like a good deal. Earth would gain access to advanced alien technology and protection from a powerful empire. But Linda Morales, who attended as part of the American delegation, noticed something concerning in the fine print of the agreement. "They're taking control of all our orbital space," she whispered to John during a break. "And look at these resource quotas. They're enormous." John nodded grimly. "They're not here as friends. They're here to take what they want. Over the next 6 months, the truth became clear. Nexian ships began extracting enormous amounts of water from Earth's oceans. They established mining operations in Africa, South America, and Asia that removed rare metals at an alarming rate. When nations protested that the extraction exceeded the agreed-upon limits, Zakar simply reminded them of their signatures on the treaty. "You are now part of the Empire," he stated coolly. "The needs of the Empire come first." 1 year after first contact, the United Nations created a new position, Earth Liaison to the Nexian Command. Linda Morales was appointed to this role. Her job was to improve relations between humans and Nexians and negotiate better treatment for Earth. Meanwhile, John Carter was selected to work with Nexian scientists. The aliens were impressed by his engineering skills and allowed him access to their lower-level research facilities. John knew this was a rare opportunity. While he worked with the aliens, he secretly studied their technology, particularly their propulsion systems. "They use a form of gravity manipulation," he explained to Linda during one of their secret meetings. "Their ships can create artificial gravity wells that they essentially fall toward. It's how they move such massive vessels so efficiently." Linda shared her own discoveries. "I found their classification system. They've labeled Earth as a Class 3 civilization. That means they see us as developed enough to be useful but not advanced enough to be a threat." That classification gives them the legal right to extract our resources with minimal restrictions, she added. Under Imperial law, Class 3 worlds have very few protections. As months turned into years, Earth's situation worsened. The Nexians took more and more resources. They began recruiting humans to work in their off-world mining operations. These workers often returned home years later, aged beyond their years from the difficult conditions. John and Linda weren't the only ones who recognized the truth. Around the world, a resistance movement formed. At first, they were just small groups sharing information and preparing for the worst. Then they began recruiting scientists, engineers, and military personnel who shared their concerns. 5 years after first contact, John attended a secret meeting in an underground facility beneath the Rocky Mountains. The room was filled with 200 of Earth's brightest minds: physicists, engineers, military strategists, and government officials who had grown disillusioned with the Nexian partnership. Paul Winters, a former mining corporation CEO, stood to address the group. "The Nexians think they've conquered us without firing a shot," he said. "They believe their technological advantage makes them invincible, but they've made one critical mistake." He smiled grimly. "They've underestimated human creativity and determination when our backs are against the wall." Paul revealed giant screens showing detailed scans of Nexian technology. "Thanks to people like John Carter and others working within Nexian facilities, we've gathered crucial information about their systems. We can't match their technology directly, not yet, but we don't need to." The screens changed to show images of Ceres, the largest asteroid in the belt between Mars and Jupiter. "We're not going to build ships to fight their ships," Paul explained. "We're going to think bigger, much bigger." The room fell silent as people began to understand what he was suggesting. "The Nexians control our orbital space," Paul continued. "They monitor every rocket launch and satellite deployment. But they pay little attention to our automated mining operations in the asteroid belt. They've given us permission to mine there, after all." He pointed to Ceres on the screen. "We're going to hollow out asteroids and convert them into ships. Not just any ships, mobile battle stations the size of small moons. The Nexians can't imagine that we could move an entire planetoid. That's exactly why it will work." John Carter stood up. "I've adapted their gravity manipulation technology to work with our systems. It's primitive compared to theirs, but it should be enough to move Ceres, if we can generate sufficient power." The room erupted in questions and concerns. The project would require enormous resources, perfect secrecy, and years of work. It seemed impossible. But as Linda looked around at the determined faces, she knew they would find a way. Humanity had been backed into a corner. Now they would show the galaxy what humans could do when they had no choice but to be extraordinary. The red dust of Mars swirled around the entrance of the underground facility. On the surface, it looked like just another mining operation approved by the Nexians. Large machines moved back and forth, extracting minerals and loading them onto transport vehicles. Nexian observers flew by occasionally, but they never stayed long. Mars was cold, dusty, and dull compared to the lush beauty of Earth. What the Nexians didn't know was that 200 feet below the surface, humanity's greatest engineering project was taking shape. The facility stretched for miles in all directions, carved into the Martian bedrock. Here, thousands of engineers, scientists, and workers lived and worked in complete secrecy. Paul Winters walked through the main control room, nodding to the tired but determined faces he passed. 6 years had passed since first contact and 3 years since the start of Project Olympus. The name seemed fitting. In ancient Earth mythology, Olympus was the home of gods who wielded incredible power. If the project succeeded, humanity would gain godlike abilities in the eyes of the Nexian Empire. "How's progress on the Ceres facility?" Paul asked as he approached the central holographic display. Dr. Samantha Wright looked up from her workstation. Dark circles under her eyes showed her exhaustion, but the excitement in her voice was unmistakable. "We're ahead of schedule. The main propulsion chamber is almost complete." Samantha had been John Carter's student years ago. Now she led the team developing the revolutionary propulsion system that would move Ceres. Her breakthrough came when she found a way to combine Nexian Gravity technology with human nuclear fusion methods. The real challenge was power generation, she explained, pulling up detailed schematics on the screen. Moving a planetoid requires energy on a scale we've never dealt with before. We're using a network of fusion reactors all working together. Paul nodded, impressed by the solution. And the structural integrity? That's where Greg Porter's team did something brilliant, Samantha replied. She switched the display to show the interior of Ceres. Instead of trying to reinforce the entire asteroid, they're using the gravity manipulation field itself to hold it together during movement. The same technology that moves it also prevents it from breaking apart. In another section of the facility, Linda Morales met with the intelligence team. As Earth's liaison to the Nexian command, she had access to information few others could obtain. More importantly, she could move between Earth and Mars without raising suspicion. The Nexians are planning to increase resource quotas again, Linda told the group. They're also transferring another battle cruiser to our solar system. I think they're preparing to move Earth from Class 3 to Class 2 status. What does that mean? Asked one of the analysts. It means they'll start taking people, not just resources, Linda replied grimly. Class 2 worlds provide labor for the Empire's more dangerous operations. The news added urgency to their already pressed timeline. Outside the meeting room, Linda found John Carter waiting for her. You should see this, he said, leading her to a small workshop. Inside, he showed her a device about the size of a microwave oven. It's a miniature version of the propulsion system, he explained. Completely functional. He activated the device. The air around it shimmered slightly, and then a baseball sitting on the workbench slowly rose into the air. You've created artificial gravity, Linda said, amazed. John nodded. The principles are the same as what we're building on Ceres, just on a much smaller scale. This proves the concept works. The success of the small prototype boosted everyone's spirits. But the enormity of what they were attempting still weighed heavily on them. No civilization in known history had ever moved a planetoid. Even the Nexians, with their vast technological advantages, had never attempted it. On Ceres itself, work continued day and night. Automated mining equipment, controlled remotely from Mars, hollowed out sections of the dwarf planet. Human workers, disguised as regular miners, installed power systems and primitive weapons. From the outside, Ceres still looked like an ordinary asteroid. The original plan called for 5 years of work before the first test. But during a routine communication with Earth, Kevin Bailey, their informant in the Nexian security force, sent an urgent warning. Unusual energy readings detected in asteroid belt. Investigation team dispatched. Arrival in 3 weeks. The message sent the project into high alert. If the Nexians discovered what they were doing, all would be lost. Paul called an emergency meeting of the project leaders. We need to accelerate the timeline, he announced. Can we make Ceres operational enough for a demonstration in 3 weeks? John shook his head. Not fully operational, but maybe mobile. We'd need to transfer all available power to the propulsion system and forget about weapons for now. Do it, Paul ordered. If we can show them we can move Ceres, it might be enough to make them reconsider their position. For the next 3 weeks, everyone worked without rest. Sleep schedules were forgotten. Meals were eaten at workstations. The sense of urgency spread through every level of the project. On Ceres, the final connections were made between the fusion reactors and the gravity manipulation system. Engineers ran simulation after simulation, fixing problems as they appeared. 2 days before the Nexian investigation team was due to arrive, Dr. Wright called from Ceres with news. We're ready for a preliminary test, she reported. Not full movement, but enough to shift Ceres slightly in its orbit. The test was scheduled for the following day. Everyone gathered in the main control room on Mars to watch. Screens showed the different teams on Ceres at their stations. Reactors at full power, reported the energy team. Gravity field generators online, added another engineer. Structural integrity field activated, said a third. Dr. Wright gave the final command, initiate test sequence. For several tense moments, nothing seemed to happen. Then the tracking data began to change. Ceres was moving. Not much, just a few kilometers, but it was changing its orbit under human control. Cheers erupted throughout the facility. People hugged each other, some crying with relief and joy. It worked. The theory was proven. Humans could move a planetoid. This changes everything, Paul said quietly to John and Linda. Even if we're not ready for a full demonstration, we've accomplished what the Nexians thought was impossible. But their celebration was cut short when alarms sounded throughout the facility. A communication officer rushed over to them, face pale. "We have a problem," he said, pointing to the tracking screens. The Nexian investigation team arrived early. "They've detected our energy signature on Ceres. Their ships are approaching now." Silence fell over the control room. They weren't ready for this confrontation. The plan had been to complete Ceres, fully arm it, and then reveal their achievement from a position of strength. John looked at Paul. "What do we do? We can't fight them yet." Paul thought for a moment, then squared his shoulders. "We don't fight. We impress them." He turned to the communications officer. "Open a channel to the Nexian ships. It's time to show them what humanity can do." As the officer prepared the transmission, Paul addressed the room. "This isn't how we planned to reveal Project Olympus. But maybe it's better this way. The Nexians are about to learn that they severely underestimated human ingenuity." Linda nodded in agreement. "And after today, the Nexian Empire will never look at Earth the same way again." The 3 Nexian scout ships moved slowly toward Ceres. Their sleek silver hulls reflected the distant sunlight as they approached the large asteroid. Commander Vrax, leader of the investigation team, studied the readings on his screen with growing confusion. "These energy signatures match nothing in our database," he told his science officer. "How could miners produce power levels this high?" Before the science officer could answer, a message came through on their communication system. The face of a human appeared on the screen. "Greetings, Nexian vessels. I am Paul Winters, Director of Project Olympus. We've been expecting you, though not quite so soon." Commander Vrax narrowed his silver eyes. "Explain the unusual energy readings coming from this asteroid, human. What are you hiding from the Empire?" Paul smiled. "We aren't hiding anything anymore. In fact, we'd like to give you a demonstration. Please maintain your current position and observe." Vrax started to respond angrily, but something caught his attention. The sensor readings from Ceres were changing rapidly. Power levels were surging to extraordinary heights. On Ceres, deep within the control center, Dr. Samantha Wright gave the order. "All reactors to maximum output. Activate main propulsion system." Engineers and technicians moved with practiced precision despite their nervousness. This would be the first full-scale test of their propulsion system. If it failed now, the Nexians would know their plans and Earth would face severe punishment. "Gravity field stabilizing," reported one engineer. "Structural integrity holding at 92%. "That's enough," Samantha said. "Begin forward movement, 1/4 power." At first, nothing seemed to happen. Then a slight vibration ran through the entire asteroid. On the sensor displays, Ceres began to move away from its natural orbit. Inside the Nexian ships, alarms blared as their instruments detected the impossible. Commander Vrax stared at his screen in disbelief. "The asteroid is moving under its own power," the science officer reported, voice shaking. "It's not following orbital mechanics, it's being piloted." Vrax could hardly believe what he was seeing. In all his years serving the Empire, he had never witnessed anything like this. Moving a planetoid required technology that even the Nexians hadn't mastered. Paul's face reappeared on their communication screen. "As you can see, Commander, humanity has developed some new capabilities. Ceres is no longer just an asteroid. It's the first of Earth's planet ships." Vrax found his voice. "This is impossible. Your civilization is barely space-capable. You've had our technology for only 6 years." "6 years was enough," Paul replied calmly. "We're quick learners." On Mars, John Carter and Linda Morales watched the exchange on the main view screen. Around them, the control room staff held their breath, waiting to see how the Nexians would respond. "They look scared," Linda whispered to John. "They should be," he replied. "We've just changed the balance of power in the solar system." "Commander," Vrax was indeed frightened, though he tried not to show it. His orders had been to investigate unusual energy readings, not confront a weapon of this magnitude. He needed to inform his superiors immediately. "We will report this development to Grand Admiral Zakar," Vrax said stiffly. "Remain where you are until further notice." Paul nodded politely. "Safe travels, Commander. We'll be here." As the Nexian ships retreated to a safe distance, cheers erupted throughout the human facilities on both Mars and Ceres. Years of secret work had finally paid off. They had successfully moved Ceres under its own power and revealed their achievement to the Nexians. But everyone knew this was just the beginning. The real test would come when Grand Admiral Zakar learned what they had done. 2 weeks later, the Airito, massive Nexian flagship, arrived in Earth's orbit. Behind it came a fleet of 20 battlecruisers, their weapons systems fully charged. Grand Admiral Zakar wasted no time. He demanded that Earth's leaders meet with him immediately. The meeting took place in the United Nations headquarters in New York. Representatives from every nation gathered in the assembly hall. A large holographic projector in the center of the room displayed Zakar's imposing figure. "You have violated your agreement with the Empire," Zakar began, his voice cold with anger. "Developing weapons technology without authorization is forbidden for Class 3 civilizations." The Secretary General of the UN started to respond, but Linda Morales stepped forward instead. In the 3 years since the start of Project Olympus, she had risen to become Earth's Director of Planetary Defense, a position created specifically for the coming confrontation. "With respect, Admiral," Linda said firmly, "we have developed no weapons, we've simply improved our mining and transportation capabilities." Zakar's face darkened with rage. "Do not play games with me, human. My scouts reported what they saw. You have somehow weaponized an entire asteroid." Linda smiled slightly. "Ceres is indeed under our control now, but it's merely the first step in our new transportation system. Perhaps you'd like to see the next step?" She nodded to John Carter, who sat at a computer terminal nearby. John pressed a series of commands and the large screen behind Linda changed to show a view of the outer solar system. "We present the second of Earth's planet ships," Linda announced. "Pluto." The image zoomed in on the distant dwarf planet. Like Ceres, Pluto had been transformed. Lights now dotted its surface and large structures were visible even from a distance. "Impossible," Zakar whispered. "Pluto is billions of miles from Earth. You couldn't have reached it and modified it so quickly." "We didn't need to send people there," John explained, standing to join Linda. "Once we perfected the remote operation of mining equipment on Ceres, we applied the same techniques to Pluto. Automated systems did the work for us." As they watched, Pluto began to move. Unlike Ceres, which had moved slowly and shakily in its first test, Pluto moved with smooth precision, changing its position with apparent ease. "As you can see," Linda continued, "our technology has improved significantly since the Ceres prototype. Pluto can travel much faster and with greater control." The room fell silent as the implications became clear. Earth now controlled at least 2 planet-sized ships. Even the formidable Nexian fleet would struggle against such massive opponents. Zakar's hologram flickered as he received new information from his advisors. His expression changed from anger to careful neutrality. "The Empire recognizes Earth's technological achievement," he said carefully. "However, this development changes the nature of our relationship. We must renegotiate our agreement." Linda nodded. "We agree. Earth is prepared to establish a new relationship with the Nexian Empire, one based on mutual respect rather than exploitation." Zakar's silver eyes narrowed. "Do not overestimate your position, Director Morales. The Empire still holds significant advantages." "Perhaps," Linda replied. "But before we begin negotiations, you should know one more thing." She paused, making sure she had everyone's attention. "Ceres and Pluto are just the beginning. We have more surprises waiting if the Empire chooses the path of conflict." It wasn't entirely true. They had no other planet ships ready yet, but the Nexians didn't know that. The bluff worked. Scar agreed to withdraw most of his fleet as a show of good faith while negotiations began. As the meeting ended, John turned to Linda. That went better than expected. Linda nodded. For now. But Scar won't accept this situation for long. He's just buying time until he figures out how to respond. Then we'd better use that time wisely, John said, because when the Empire strikes back, we need to be ready. Grand Admiral Scar stood before the Imperial Council on the Nexian homeworld. The council chamber was enormous, with high ceilings and walls made of a shimmering material that changed colors slowly. 50 council members sat in raised seats looking down at Scar with expressions of concern and anger. Explain how a Class 3 civilization managed to develop planet-moving technology without our knowledge, demanded High Counselor Ven, her voice echoing in the chamber. Scar kept his face neutral despite his inner turmoil. This was the most difficult meeting of his long career. The humans are unusual. They adapt to new ideas and technologies faster than any species we have encountered. That is no excuse, said another counselor. You have failed in your duty to maintain control of the Earth sector. I recommend immediate military action, said General Kraz, the head of Imperial forces. We must crush this rebellion before other Protectorate worlds learn of it. Science Minister Trell, a thin Nexian with unusual purple eyes, spoke up. I disagree. A species that can advance this quickly may have other surprises waiting. We should proceed with caution. The debate continued for hours. Some counselors wanted to destroy Earth immediately. Others suggested negotiation. A few even proposed offering humans full membership in the Empire to gain access to their innovative capabilities. Meanwhile, back in the solar system, humanity was using the time wisely. With the secret of their planet ships now revealed, they worked openly to strengthen their position. Admiral Frank Phillips, commander of the Pluto ship, directed a series of training exercises. Pluto performed complex maneuvers, demonstrating speed and control that surprised even its human creators. We're getting better at this, Frank told his crew after a particularly successful test. The gravity drive is now operating at 78% efficiency. That's twice what we achieved during our first demonstration. On Mars, production accelerated. The facilities that had created the control systems for Ceres and Pluto now worked on new, smaller versions that could be installed on other asteroids. Within 3 months, 5 smaller asteroids had been converted into defensive platforms. These weren't as powerful as the planet ships, but they could move quickly and were equipped with basic weapons. John Carter led the weapons development team. Using modified Nexian technology combined with human innovations, they created energy, weapons that could challenge even Nexian shields. The key was changing the frequency pattern, John explained to Linda during a strategy meeting. Nexian shields are designed to block steady energy beams. Our weapons pulse at irregular intervals that confuse their defensive systems. Linda nodded appreciatively. How many weapons do we have ready? Enough to arm Ceres fully, John replied. Pluto will be ready next week. The asteroid platforms already have their defensive systems installed. Paul Winters, who now served as Earth's defense coordinator, studied the latest intelligence reports. Our spies in the Empire report that the Imperial Council is divided. Some want war, others prefer negotiation. But they're definitely building up their fleet. We should expect an attack eventually. 5 months after the revelation of the planet ships, humanity got a new ally. Kevin Bailey, their informant in the Nexian security force, arrived at the Mars facility with an unexpected guest, a Nexian named Lyrax. She wants to defect, Kevin explained to the surprised security team. She's a propulsion engineer, one of their best. Lyrax's arrival caused quite a stir. She was the first Nexian to voluntarily join the human side. During her debriefing, she shared valuable information. The Empire has never faced a challenge like this, she told Linda and Paul. For thousands of years, they've expanded by subjugating less advanced species. They don't know how to react to a species that can match their technology so quickly. Why did you decide to help us? Linda asked. Lyrax's silver eyes showed emotion that was hard for humans to read. The Empire has grown corrupt. Many Nexians believe we should help younger species develop, not exploit them. When I saw what humans accomplished with the planet ships, I realized you might be the force that finally changes the Empire. Her technical knowledge proved invaluable. With Lyrax's help, the efficiency of the gravity drives improved dramatically. 6 months after her arrival, Earth unveiled its third planet ship, a transformed asteroid named Vesta that was smaller than Ceres but faster and more heavily armed. On the day of Vesta's first test flight, Grand Admiral Zakar returned to the solar system. This time his fleet was much larger, 50 battlecruisers arranged in attack formation. They positioned themselves beyond Mars's orbit, a clear show of force. "This is Grand Admiral Zakar to Earth Defense Coordinator Paul Winters," came the transmission. "The Imperial Council has made its decision. Earth has 2 options. Surrender your planet ship technology to the Empire immediately, or face destruction." The ultimatum was broadcast throughout the solar system. On Earth, people gathered around screens, waiting anxiously for the response from their leaders. Paul, Linda, and John met quickly to discuss their options. The situation was tense, but not as dire as the Nexians thought. "Do we have our surprise? Ready?" Paul asked John. John nodded. "Everything is in position. The Nexians can only see what we want them to see." Linda took a deep breath. "Then it's time for Plan Phoenix." Paul opened a channel to respond to Zakar. His face appeared on screens throughout Earth, Mars, and all human outposts in the solar system. "People of Earth, as you know, the Nexian Empire has demanded that we surrender our technology or face destruction," he began. "Here is our answer." He nodded to John, who activated a series of commands. Far beyond Neptune's orbit, hidden from Nexian sensors by specialized jamming equipment, 30 smaller asteroids suddenly activated their propulsion systems. These had been prepared in secret, a hidden reserve force that even most humans didn't know about. Within minutes, they formed a defensive line that stretched across the solar system. Then came the masterstroke. From behind the sun emerged Earth's newest creation, a ship created from a chunk of Earth's moon, nearly 1/4 the size of the moon itself. This vessel had been hidden by keeping it in the sun's glare, invisible to Nexian sensors. "Admiral Zakar," Paul continued, "you see before you humanity's real defense force. The planet ships you already knew about were just the beginning. We have established a defensive perimeter that extends throughout our solar system." Scar's face showed shock for the first time since humans had known him. "This is impossible. Our sensors would have detected this level of activity." Paul smiled. "Your sensors see what we want them to see. We've been jamming and feeding false readings to your systems for months." He leaned forward. "Now let me be clear. We don't want war with the Nexian Empire. We simply want to be treated as equals. If you attack us, we will defend ourselves with everything we have. And as you can see, we have quite a lot." There was a long silence as Scar consulted with his officers. Finally, he responded, "The Empire acknowledges your impressive display of force. I am authorized to open negotiations for a new relationship between Earth and the Empire." A cheer went up from everyone watching. It wasn't a complete victory yet, but it was a major step forward. Earth had forced the mighty Nexian Empire to the negotiating table as an equal. As the transmission ended, Linda turned to John and Paul. "They'll be back with a larger force eventually." "Probably," John agreed, "but by then we'll be even stronger." Paul nodded. "And we'll have spread our technology to other worlds under Nexian control. The age of imperial domination is coming to an end." 7 years had passed since Earth first revealed its planet ships to the Nexian Empire. The solar system looked very different now. Human outposts existed on most planets and large asteroids. Ships moved freely between these settlements carrying people and supplies. Earth had become the center of a thriving independent star system. The largest change could be seen on Titan, Saturn's biggest moon. A massive dome-shaped structure covered nearly 10 square miles of the surface. Inside this dome, representatives from Earth and the Nexian Empire met for the historic Titan Conference. Lisa Chen, Earth's first galactic president, stood at the center of the grand meeting hall. At 48 years old, she carried herself with quiet confidence. She had been elected 3 years ago, after Paul Winters stepped down to focus on technological development. Today marks a new chapter in the relationship between Earth and the Nexian Empire, Lisa announced to the gathered delegates. The treaty we sign establishes Earth as a sovereign power with full control over the solar system. It also creates new trade agreements that will benefit both our civilizations. Grand Admiral Zakar, still serving as the Empire's representative to Earth, stepped forward to sign the document. His once imperious manner had softened somewhat after years of negotiation. He had learned, painfully at times, that humans could not be treated like other species the Empire had encountered. The Empire acknowledges Earth's unique status, Zakar stated formally. We look forward to a productive partnership. The signing ceremony was broadcast throughout the solar system and across the Nexian Empire. Many watched with amazement. No other civilization had ever forced the Empire to sign a treaty of equals. After the ceremony, John Carter stood at a viewing window in the Titan facility. At nearly 50 years old now, his hair had turned gray, but his eyes still shone with the same intensity. He watched as Earth's newest planet ship, a transformed section of Saturn's rings, performed a demonstration flight nearby. Quite a view, isn't it? Said a voice behind him. John turned to see Linda Morales approaching. She now served as Earth's ambassador to the wider galaxy, representing human interests beyond the solar system. I still can't believe how far we've come, John replied. 7 years ago we were just hoping to survive. Now we're signing treaties as equals. Linda nodded. And it's not just the planet ships that changed things. It's what we did with them. She was right. The planet ships had become more than just military deterrents. They now served as mobile colonies, research stations, and diplomatic platforms. Ceres had been transformed into a massive agricultural center, with huge internal growing areas that produced food for the entire solar system. Pluto had become a deep space research facility, studying the outer reaches of the solar system and beyond. The latest reports from the Andromeda sector are promising, Linda continued. 3 more worlds have requested our help in developing their own planet ships. This was perhaps the most significant change of all. Earth had begun sharing its technology with other species who had been dominated by the Empire. Not the full technology, they weren't that trusting, but enough to help these worlds protect themselves from exploitation. How is the Empire responding to that? John asked. Linda smiled. They're not happy about it, but there's little they can do. The treaty prevents them from interfering with our diplomatic missions. Later that day, a small ceremony took place in a quiet corner of the Titan facility. Only a handful of people attended, those who had been there from the beginning of Project Olympus. Paul Winters, now using a cane due to an injury sustained during a Nexian attack years ago, addressed the group. When we started this journey, we had no idea where it would lead, he said. We just knew we couldn't accept being treated as lesser beings. Now look at us. He gestured to a large window showing Earth in the distance, beautiful and blue. Our world is free, our people are thriving, and we've changed the balance of power in the galaxy. Dr. Samantha Wright raised a glass in toast. To those who didn't live to see this day, she said quietly. Many nodded solemnly. The road to freedom had not been without cost. Attacks and accidents had claimed many lives over the years. Kevin Bailey, who had risen to become head of Earth's intelligence service, added his own toast. And to Lyrax and the others who chose to stand with us. Lyrax and several dozen other Nexians who had defected to Earth's side had provided crucial help during the most difficult times. As the gathering ended, John walked with Paul toward the shuttle bay. Have you heard the latest scientific breakthrough? John asked. Paul shook his head. The team on Pluto has developed a new version of the gravity drive, John explained. They think it might allow us to reach nearby star systems in weeks rather than years. Paul's eyes widened. Interstellar travel? Already? The initial tests are promising, John replied. If it works, we could establish colonies beyond our solar system within a decade. The implications were enormous. Earth would no longer be confined to a single star system. Humanity could spread throughout the galaxy, establishing a presence that would secure their position forever. As they reached the shuttle bay, They found Eric Donovan preparing to depart. Eric served as Earth's ambassador to the Andromeda Alliance, a coalition of species who had long suffered under Nexian domination. Now, with Earth's help, they were forming their own power block. Off to spread more revolution? Paul asked with a smile. Eric grinned. Just sharing some friendly advice on planetary engineering. Nothing that would concern the Empire. They all knew that was not entirely true. Every world that developed its own planet ships became a world the Empire could no longer control. Slowly but surely, the galaxy was changing. After saying goodbye to Eric, John and Paul watched the ambassador's ship depart. Through the large viewport, they could see 3 of Earth's planet ships in the distance, massive structures moving with impossible grace against the backdrop of stars. A Nexian historian asked me something interesting yesterday, John said. She wanted to know how humans achieved in a decade what took other species centuries. What did you tell her? Paul asked. John smiled. I said we had no choice but to be extraordinary. Throughout our history, humans have always been at their most innovative when their backs are against the wall. Paul nodded thoughtfully. The Empire made a serious mistake when they tried to conquer us. Yes, John agreed. They shouldn't have backed us into a corner. As they turned to leave, a message came through on Paul's communication device. It was from the research team on Pluto. The new drive test had been successful. Interstellar travel was now possible. Paul shared the news with John, whose face broke into a wide smile. Well, John said, I guess we'd better start looking for some new planets to turn into ships. The 2 men laughed as they headed back to the conference center. Behind them, through the viewport, Saturn's rings glowed in the sunlight, half of them already transformed into humanity's newest vessels. The rest of the galaxy was waiting, and Earth was ready to claim its place among the stars.